I'm with Mark Spurgeon of Boca Grande Real Estate. He is the owner. It's nice to meet you.
Good morning.
So we're here to talk about the coronavirus and how has it affected your business on Boca Grande. So can you tell me a little bit about perhaps how business was and when it changed for you?
Yeah, so we've been in business since 1977, and we have a pretty solid track of where our business should be. And we noticed a huge change in March when we started getting a slew of cancellations from guests. And so we established a policy and amended our contract to provide some relief for these people who couldn't travel. And so we followed the CDC guidelines as they move forward. And then at some point, Governor DeSantis took over, started signing executive orders, and then we followed his executive order. So it was a wave of cancellations, and then when the executive order for no rentals happened, we actually had to get on the phone then and tell people that they couldn't come. So it has affected us for first 3 months, probably not so bad because we were in normal operations and we had a number of longer term people. But as we transitioned to the middle and end of March, it was mostly 1 week bookings, and that was severely affected.
Mm-hmm. So how have you seen it affect people's desire, I guess, to buy property? Have you noticed a difference in those type of sales?
Certainly. Now we had pending sales, and there were 1 or 2 that canceled because of just the conditions, and then there were those that were sure what they wanted to do and knew that the island was solid, and so they'll follow through with their transactions. In the meantime, there are still people looking at property, but those that are just uncertain about things, or maybe they were affected by the market, they're taking a pause. Mm-hmm. I know I talked to many contractors, and they've had that happen as well, where people just like, let's put this project on hold now till we are certain what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I feel there's a lot of pent-up demand that is going to be there. So once we get past this, I think we'll move forward fairly quickly.
Right. So how has this affected your staff here?
Well, I would say there was effort that had to be done to keep morale up. Obviously, they were first worried about, well, are we going to be laid off, terminated? So there's anxiety, mm-hmm. From that. And so we were able to, and we've secured like the paycheck protection mm-hmm. loan. And so that made them feel a little more, confident that they weren't going to lose their job. Mm-hmm. And so mm-hmm. then we pivoted and said, well, there's things that we normally don't get to do for seasons. So, we're still busy. We're out securing properties, doing different tasks that mm-hmm. we normally would have to squeeze in between our busy rental season. So we've kept busy.
How has the coronavirus affected you personally?
Well, just in one way, since I'm the past president of the Inglewood Area Board of Realtors, those activities and all the other social activities were pulled back. So it's actually opened up my schedule to work on other things. But unfortunately, my dad passed away March 18th, and so we've been dealing with that. And that was very peculiar because at that time, the CDC guideline was no more than 10 people in a place. So we had to figure out how do we have, a service with 10 people and still include, the grandchildren and, mm-hmm. and people that cared about my father. So we had a service at graveside, and, there was Pastor Gary Beatty, 2 people from an Air Force honor guard, my 2 siblings and our spouses, and then had my good friend Don Lutz do a face stream video, so the grandchildren were able to log on, and other people that knew and were interested could at least watch the mm-hmm. service from that mm-hmm. standpoint. So we're waiting after things open back up to have a family gathering when people can travel and be together to do that.
Right.
But that was quite peculiar, though. In some ways, it was relieving because it was an intimate, setting, and afterwards we just had, lunch at my sister's house, and were able to spend time together. So that was good without, a whole cross section of emotions and what you would normally deal with,
Right.
where things came so fast. This gave us a little more perspective on the service than it just being a whirlwind, I would say.
Right.
But so that was a real effect. And then just thinking twice where you're at with your space of other people, and thinking about going to the grocery store and what is available. I liken it to a hurricane. We're used to that drill, but not at this time of year.
Right.
And so it's something we've done before many times, but it's just at least a hurricane comes and goes, and then you deal with the aftermath. Here,
Right.
it's like we're still preparing for the hurricane, and here we are.
And we
a
haven't
couple
had, we've
months
had the
into it.
storm. We've had the storm, but just parts of the storm.
Right. So we've been in survival mode for
Right.
2 months instead of a week or two.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously that is stressful.
Do you see how Boca Grande has been affected by the coronavirus outside of your business? Do you talk to other business owners here, and what has been their take on how it's affected them?
Most definitely. I don't know anyone that it hasn't affected. And then there are underlying things like even a restaurant. Well, there's a sit-down business that they lost, but then there's, okay, well, how do we maintain our supply chain afterwards? So there's so many things that we don't know, the full impact of yet. And even with this paycheck protection plan, okay, that's 10 weeks. So, okay, so you have your payroll and your rent covered for 10 weeks. That's fine now, but come August and September, I'm concerned it's going to be, extremely difficult for some people.
Right, and actually down here, a lot of businesses close in the summertime, so they not only have not had season, then they're going to be closed in the summertime like they normally would be.
Yes, and they still have certain expenses that they have to pay, even
Right.
though they're cutting their losses by closing.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. But like I said, we haven't felt the full effects of it yet. They're still rumbling, through things we don't even think about, but that we've experienced, for instance, is even credit card processing. Right now, we switched to e-check or check only because of the credit card companies. We have credit card companies that are dealing with a wave of airline refunds and things, and these are in the billions of dollars. So even though we're a small player, we've seen some guests have delayed refunds back, and there's been some agitation with that. And then you have your secondary booking platforms in the vacation rental space like Airbnb, VRBO, Red Awning, and we see them under a lot of stress. And so we're a small local firm. Our reputation is very important. These larger platforms do not account for that, whatsoever. And so we're seeing that, are they going to survive, and do we even want to, partner with them?
Right.
They are a very small part of our business, less than 3%. So we weigh this and go, do we really even need that? So it causes you to reflect and see, are certain things that are necessary or not, and if we can do, without them, let's go ahead and use this as an opportunity to reset and change and tweak it. So I think businesses that do survive will be stronger. They'll have to be resourceful, and they'll see benefits come from those decisions they're making right now.
Right. I'm here with Sharon McKenzie of the Barrier Island Park Society, also known as BIPS, to find out how coronavirus has affected them. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So can you tell me what BIPS represents?
So Barrier Island Park Society is a 501c3. We're a nonprofit on the island, one of many. And our mission is to inspire the exploration and preservation of our natural and historic resources. Basically what we do is we manage and operate this beautiful lighthouse here, Gasparilla Island Lighthouse. and Port Boca Grand Lighthouse and Museum. We also support 4 state parks. You might have heard of them before: Cayo Costa, Don Pedro, Gasparilla Island, and also Stump Pass Beach State Park. We also have 2 friends groups, the Friends of Cayo Costa, Friends of Stump Pass, who are predominantly responsible for their own parks. That's their focus. And we do a lot of educational and outreach programs on the island that you might have heard of, some like Wading Adventures is one of them.
Right, and also climbing the lighthouse, correct?
Absolutely. Climbing the lighthouses are one of our programs.
That's one of the things I'm looking forward to doing when it's opened up again. So how have you found that this has affected BIPS as far as tourism and people being able to go to the parks, which obviously they're not able to go to the parks?
It has affected us tremendously. Unfortunately, COVID-19 hit right in the middle of season, and we had to close down all the parks, all our programs, all our major events. So everything that was about to happen, normally happens during season, was canceled. And so it has greatly affected both, of course, our staff. It has greatly affected our ability to do outreach and education through our programs and events. It has also affected, because of the fundraising, our lack of ability to fundraise and our lack of revenue stream. We've also not been able to, or we might have problems in the future on a broader scale supporting our 4 state parks and also maintaining our 3 historic structures that we normally maintain.
So how has your staff been affected by COVID-19?
Our staff, sadly, we've had to lay off all our part-time employees, and all our full-time employees across the board have taken a pay cut. This is all in hopes that we can still get through this together and not have to lay anybody else off during this time. You have to understand that right now we have lost over half our annual revenue. Which might not sound, maybe that sounds bad, or maybe to some it says, well, you've got half, at least you've got half so far. But the problem is we're going now into non-peak season. This is the slowest season of the year, and this is actually when we're draining our bank account to stay open and keep things going.
Right.
And we have no funds to do that with.
So who determines when the parks open, the state parks and then the private beaches?
So right now there's an executive order from the governor, and if he doesn't extend it, then it will go back to the counties and the state parks. So the state park is run out of Tallahassee. That's where they are based, and they will make the decision for all the state parks and their beaches. The counties, on the other hand, are their own local governments, and they will make determinations for their county parks and beaches.
So some of the beaches that are closed here are county beaches as opposed to the Range Light Park and the Island Lighthouse Park.
Actually, the Gasparilla Island Lighthouse is actually BIPS. So the beach, the 7.4 acres with Gasparilla Island Lighthouse would be our decision because we manage and operate it with the Coast Guard. The parks, though, where Port Boca Grand Lighthouse is, and the 4 parks I mentioned earlier, those would all be determined by the state park.
Yep, and I think that's really important for people to know that Boca Grande as a whole cannot decide when the beaches open. It is by the state or by the county will determine when the parks open and in what capacity they will open to, because there are a lot of factors to consider, like restrooms.
Absolutely.
Right, because people will obviously want to come with their families, and how are they going to utilize things if they're closed. So I want to thank you so much for coming and taking the time to talk to us about Barrier Island Park Society, also known as BIPS. You can go online and find out more information at their website. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate being a part of this.
You're welcome. Thank you.